better idea. She saw that I was in trouble. Thanks, Mom. In the book of Psalms, there are many songs and poems that people said or sang when they were happy, sad, lonely, worried, or in any sort of mood. You see, the Psalms are songs, and they're liturgical songs. Liturgy means pieces of words or songs that are used within a worship service. And the songs was poetry, sung or spoken, that was used in their worship long, long ago. And they were used when they were happy, sad, lonely, worried, or in any kind of mood. Now they say, rumor has it, that King David himself wrote many of these. Remember, he had a lyre, he had a wonderful harp that he played on. He was a musician as well as being a king, and as well as being a warrior. And it is said, it is rumored, that he wrote many of these. David began to feel safe, perhaps, when he remembered that God made him and knew everything about him. King David gives praise and thanks for all of God's goodness. If he were living today, he may have said Psalm 139 like this: God is always present with us anywhere on earth, even in the skies. We can go to the North Pole or the South Pole or any continent. God is there. You can find any place on a map and know that God is there. We can't hide from God. God looks after us and cares for us. God guides us, and we feel as comfortable as we would if someone was cuddling us. We see the effects of a tornado or powerful gusts of wind. God's Spirit is like the gusts of wind. It goes everywhere, blowing goodness throughout the universe. God's Spirit is in places that are invisible to us. If we go up in an airplane, God is there too. If we go in a submarine into the depths, God is there too. God is in the green spaces of the land, in the places where the land is being hurt and damaged. God is deep in the land, in places where land is alive and flourishing, where land is crying out for just treatment. God is there. We can't weigh or measure God. We can't put a fence around God and keep God in. God is with us in shops, in rooms, in our homes, in buildings, when we go to meetings, in forests, up mountains, in green or barren lands. God is with us now and will be with us in the future, whatever may happen to us. If you are sitting down, lying down, or walking around, God is there. If we make mistakes and do things that are wrong, however we feel, God is there. When you look up in the sky and see the moon and the stars, God is there. When we get up early in the morning and see the sunrise, see beams of light across the sky or across the water, we know God is there. A sunset before the next beautiful day reminds us that God is present with all of creation. God is there. God is everywhere. God is here. I heard it in the wonderful chattering, in the narthex, and in the love of the children, and the singing of the happy birthday. God is here. I've asked several members of our church who have gone to Pilgrim Point Camp to come forward at this time to tell us what they believe camp means to them, part of our land. Would Melody and Tom and Lynn and Paige and Bryn and Megan and Claire come on forward and use the lectern.
So the things that come to mind when I think of going to women's retreat or going to any camp at Pilgrim Point are the people, the place, and the perspective. The people, of course, are the wonderful, for the women's retreat, the wonderful, lovely, engaged in life, happy, enthusiastic women of Mitzvah, mostly Mitzvah, but that I go with, but also others that I get to meet there. And the place, of course, is one of those extraordinary, beautifully thin places on earth where you can reach through and touch the divine and know God's nature by nature, and then the perspective. I always come back having grasped something that will change me, and it's either a new song, an image, a new idea, but no matter how many times I go, it always feels like home. It always changes me for the better, so I'll keep going.
For those who haven't been to camp, when you come off the highway, you drive across kind of a farm field on the gravel road, and all of a sudden you come to a forest, and you drive about a block through the forest on a winding road. And at the end of the forest, all of a sudden you are at camp. It is a different place. You can't see the camp from the highway. It is a totally separate place by the forest. Pilgrim Point Camp became organic before organic was organic. There is no pesticides. There are no fertilizers on the land. I don't think there's ever any even reseeding. Everything that happens at camp is natural. There are no cages for the animals. When you drive in and see the deer, hear the birds, hear the loons, this is all natural. There is no TV reception. There is no radio reception. Leave them at home. There is no reason for it. It takes me 3 days, normally by Wednesday when I'm at camp, and all of a sudden to realize that I am in a totally different place. I am no longer where I was before. I am now at camp. Parting words. Grandson 5 years ago had to write an essay for school. What was the best part of summer? And all he could say was Pilgrim Point Camp.
I'm going to agree with Tom. Coming from a work week, a 40-hour work week of stress and tension and go, go, go and get it done. Something about driving in that driveway that you just turn it all off, you put it all behind you, and for a week or a weekend, whatever, you can finally be quiet and at peace and just enjoying the camp. So that's the thing that strikes me when I arrive.
A few of my favorite things we did at camp are Vespers at the Point and waiting at the Point. I also loved getting dirty on the last day. We put clear tarps down in Bunny Hill and covered them with water and baby oil. And we slid down them with a mud puddle at the end. One of my favorite things about camp was the nature, because everywhere you looked there was like a beach and lots of trees. The lake was really cool. And one of my favorite parts about it was like waiting down the point, because once you're in the middle of the lake, the water's only up to your knees, so it was really cool to like take pictures out there and stuff.
One of my favorite parts of camp was making new friends. It was just really fun all week to go exploring, swimming, flipping each other's kayaks, and just having a really good time. So that's what I like about camp.
Yeah.
We went to camp for, I guess I'd been to the women's retreat once, but for the first time as a family this summer during Mizpah's weekend. And I think just the opportunity to unplug, to not have the distractions of home, a safe place for the kids to just run and form their own relationships with people. I really appreciated that there were activities planned and the food was taken care of, so we could really enjoy our time as a family. And so to have all that and then to have our faith incorporated at the same time is really hard to find. So I think when Erin and I think of our values as a family and what's really fundamental to who we are, it's a love of nature, a love of God, a love for ourselves, and a love for other people. And I think Pilgrim Point just really brings that all together. So Claire brought her duck that she got this year, and she made a list of her favorite things. So
I liked free time, swimming in the lake, seeing the sheep, sleeping in a bunk bed, cookies, talking about birthdays, sitting by Nancy and Lynn, looking at shelves and finding the tiniest curlicue, s'mores, church outside when I got to bring a rock on the church to the church service on the last day, when Lynn found me a container for my chef.
Thank you.
Great fishing right there off the Pilgrim Point too. So believe it or not, that is true. Big fish right there. Big fish. Oh yeah.
You can see that the people that have been up to Pilgrim Point Camp have really loved the camp. And it is a ministry of our own Minnesota Conference of the United Church of Christ. We believe that God can be found anywhere and everywhere. And certainly at camp it gives us the opportunity to shed all of the accoutrement of life today, our cell phones, our televisions, and everything else, and be with one another, and most importantly, be with God. Land is an important aspect shaping people, cultures, identity, and practices. Land contributes to the sense of being a people who belong in or to a particular place. You've heard that sense from these people who share their stories about Pilgrim Point Camp, a sense of belonging. People develop a deep attachment to the land in which they were born, live, or generations before them have lived. National identity is often attached to the land. Borders are defined to determine which land belongs to whom. Throughout the world, there are many people who are displaced from their land. Could it be that Sheol, the pit, the place of the dead, is being in a land that you don't want to be? What does it feel like to be unable to return to your land, your place, your country? This past Thursday, we had our first beverage and Bible event at the Big Ten Restaurant Bar. We studied this exact Psalm 139. While we were discussing our own take on what the scripture meant to us, I reminded them that this psalm very probably had been written down, finally, 500 years before the time of Christ, in the city of Babylon. You see, the people of Jerusalem had been conquered by the Babylonians, and all the kings and queens and princes and princesses and the scribes and priests and anybody of any import was taken away into slavery and taken to Babylon. How can we worship our God out away from our land, was the question. And the answer was, we won't forget our God. And they remembered their God by writing it down. As far as we can tell, this is the first instance that any religion, major religion of the world, got down and started writing down all of their sacred texts and scriptures. It had been an oral tradition up to that point. So we have this record. And this psalm was written down, we believe, at that time. Imagine them writing that down then. God, you are wherever we are. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven and you are there, if I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. Can you imagine how comforting that may have been to these people who had been taken far from their land? I'll end with this question. I'd like you to consider for the following week where you are now. and why. Where you are geographically, where you are spiritually, where you are emotionally, where you are physically. Where are you now and why? Are you in the valley of fear, or are you in the valley of hope? Are you in the cave of despair or the cave of shelter? Are you on the cliff of failure or the cliff of vision? Are you on the plain of loneliness or the plain of journey? Are you on the river of pain or the river of peace? Know this. This is a question that is always and everywhere the choice between two ways of being. Are you sensing that you are separated from God? Or are you connected to God? That will have everything to do with the questions that I've asked. Where are you now and why? Despair, shelter, failure, vision, loneliness, journey, pain, or peace. You may be noticing that even though this Sunday is Land and Camp Sunday, both are about this very connection to God, to the land, to the camp, to one another, to God. In ancient days, people connected their geographic location with the place that God resides. I think we still do that subconsciously today. But because of climate warming and terrifying weapons and pesticides, we can no longer hold God to one location on the planet. We are children of the entire world. All of us. And our greatest connection to saving the world is saving our own connection with God. There is good news out there, folks. Just reading in the New York Times this morning, there were all these windmills going out in the North Sea, and these ideas have been poo-pooed by pundits. Oh, it's not going to make enough. Well, it's making a difference. 30% of Germany is being powered by renewables, and it's growing fast, and it's making all of the major power companies on the planet very nervous because their business model is going away fast. Now, I don't want anybody to fail in their business, but we do have to save this planet, and continuing to burn fuels that kill our climate is not going to help the land that created all of these foods that helps to sustain you and your families. There is good news. It is happening. Get on board. May we all be reconnected to the land and to God. For with this connection comes our own true salvation. Yea, God. Amen.